Hello everyone. In today's video I bring you a surprising story that will leave everyone's mouth open. Let's meet Serafina, a nurse who faced death while skiing and was led into a transformative spiritual experience where Jesus revealed something shocking about the future of humanity. And what she discovered about October 19th will move you in ways you can't even imagine. So enjoy, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Now get ready, because this story will stir your soul. My name is Serafina, and I have a story to tell that completely changed the course of my life. Today, at 42 years old, I look back and see how a single moment can change everything we are and believe. I have been a nurse for almost 2 decades, a profession I chose not by chance, but as a direct result of an experience I had at age 12, a near-death experience that redefined my existence. I was born and raised in a middle-class family in Denver, Colorado. My parents were always loving and present, encouraging my natural curiosity and love of winter sports. Ever since I was little, I loved the feeling of freedom I felt when sliding down snowy slopes. Little did I know that this passion would lead me to a meeting with destiny that would alter not only my life, but my perception of reality itself. Before that fateful day in Aspen, I was an ordinary girl, with dreams and fears typical of a preteen. I liked spending time with my friends, reading adventure books and imagining what my future would be like. I was never particularly religious, although my family attended church occasionally. Spirituality was something distant to me, an abstract concept that I barely understood. I vividly remember the excitement I felt when my parents announced our vacation trip to Aspen. It was the winter of 1994, and I couldn't wait to try the region's famous ski slopes. We arrived at the ski resort on a clear, cold January day. The frigid air stung my face, but I felt alive and energized. That morning, I put on my favorite scarf, a gift from my grandmother, and headed to the slopes with an enthusiasm only a 12-year-old can have. Little did I know that that day would mark the end of one life and the beginning of another. That this carefree girl would experience something that would defy everything she believed possible. And that, in a matter of moments, I would be transported from a world of snow and fun to a realm beyond human comprehension. What happened next is something I carry with me every day. An experience so profound and transformative that it has shaped every aspect of my existence ever since. It is a story of pain and fear, but also of indescribable love, shocking revelations, and a purpose that transcends our earthly understanding. Get ready for a journey beyond the limits of life as we know it. This is my story, the story of how I died, was reborn, and discovered a destiny greater than I could have ever imagined. The day started like any other on our vacation trip. The sky was a crystal blue, contrasting beautifully with the pristine white of the snow covering the Aspen Mountains. I was beaming with joy, eager to explore new ski slopes. My parents watched me from afar, confident in my abilities, as I headed for the cable car that would take me to the top of the mountain. I clearly remember the biting cold on my cheeks and the comforting weight of my grandmother's scarf around my neck. That scarf, such a special gift, would end up being the catalyst for a series of events that would change my life forever. As the cable car ascended, I watched the stunning landscape unfold below me. The snow-covered trees seemed like silent sentinels guarding the mountain's secrets. Little did I know that I would soon become part of these secrets myself. Reaching the top, I felt that familiar rush of adrenaline course through my body. The thin air at high altitude made me slightly dizzy, but I was determined to tackle a new track. With a smile on my face, I adjusted my skis and prepared for the descent. It was at that moment, as I was positioning myself to leave, that fate intervened in a cruel way. My scarf, which was fluttering gently in the wind, was suddenly caught in a stronger gust. Before I could react, the end of the fabric wrapped around the nearby tow rope. Panic invaded me instantly. I tried to free myself, but the movement only made the scarf tighten around my neck. In seconds, what was supposed to be a joyful day turned into a terrifying nightmare. I felt my feet leave the ground as I was pulled by the rope. The air was forced from my lungs, and searing pain exploded in my neck and head. My vision began to darken, black dots dancing before my eyes. The sounds around me, the other skiers, screams of horror, the metallic creaking of the rope, seemed distant and unreal. In those terrible moments, I thought about my parents, how devastated they would be. I thought about my life, so short and yet so full of unfulfilled possibilities. And then, just as the darkness threatened to engulf me completely, something extraordinary happened. Suddenly the pain stopped. The intense cold that enveloped me gave way to a feeling of warmth and comfort. The darkness that clouded my vision dissipated, replaced by a soft, welcoming light. It was as if, in an instant, I had been transported from a world of pain and fear to a realm of absolute peace. At that moment, suspended between life and death, I didn't know I was about to embark on a journey that would challenge everything I believed to be real. A journey that would take me beyond the limits of the physical world and introduce me to truths that transcend our earthly understanding. The accident that should have ended my life was about to give me a new beginning, a new perspective, and a purpose I could never have imagined. And so, as my body remained trapped and lifeless in the cold aspen snow, my spirit was freed to explore realms beyond human imagination. When I opened my eyes, I was momentarily disoriented. The scene before me was familiar, the same snow-capped mountains, the same bright blue sky, but something was profoundly different. The excruciating pain I felt moments before was completely gone, replaced by a feeling of lightness and well-being that I had never experienced before. I looked down, expecting to see my bruised body in the snow, but instead I saw only the mountainous landscape below me. It was at that moment that I realized that I was no longer tied to my physical body. It was as if I were floating, free from the limitations of gravity and matter. The light around me was not the cold light of the winter sun, but a warm, welcoming glow that seemed to emanate from all directions. This light not only illuminated the room, but seemed to penetrate my very being, filling me with an indescribable peace and serenity. As I tried to make sense of this new reality, I noticed that my perception had expanded in ways I couldn't explain. I could feel every snowflake, every gentle breeze, as if they were extensions of my own being. The sounds around me, the whisper of the wind, the distant birdsong, were clearer and more harmonious than I had ever experienced. It was then that I realized I wasn't alone. 3 luminous figures approached me, moving with supernatural grace and fluidity. As they approached, I felt a surge of love and compassion so intense it almost took my breath away, if I even needed to breathe in that state. The central figure, I recognized immediately, was Jesus. Not the Jesus of church paintings or storybooks, but a living presence and radiant with love and wisdom. His eyes, deep and compassionate, seemed to contain all the knowledge of the universe. Beside him, 2 beings of pure light watched me with a benevolence that transcended anything I had ever experienced on earth. Without words being spoken, I knew I was safe, that I was home. All the worries and fears of my earthly life seemed trivial and distant. In that moment, enveloped by the divine presence, I experienced a sense of belonging and acceptance that I didn't even know I craved. Jesus reached out his hand to me, and when I touched it, I was flooded with profound knowledge. In an instant, I understood that he knew every detail of my life, every joy, every sadness, every hope, and every fear. There was no judgment in his gaze, just an unconditional love that made me feel completely accepted and understood for the first time in my life. The beings of light at his side emanated a calm and comforting presence, although they didn't speak. I could feel their ancient wisdom and divine purpose. They were guardians, guides, gifts, to help me on this journey beyond the veil of death. In that moment, suspended in eternity, I understood that my life and death had a greater purpose than I could have ever imagined. The accident that should have been the end of my story was, in fact, just the beginning of something much bigger. As I floated there, bathed in divine light and surrounded by beings of pure love, I knew I was about to receive revelations that would change not only my life, but potentially the course of humanity. What began as an ordinary day of skiing had transformed into a spiritual journey that would challenge everything I believed I knew about life, death, and the purpose of our existence. As I stood there, surrounded by the divine presence of Jesus and the beings of light, I began to feel a subtle change in the atmosphere around me. The serene, ethereal landscape began to transform, and I was transported to a series of visions that left me deeply disturbed and amazed at the same time. Before my eyes, the world as I knew it began to unfold like a vast tapestry of interconnected events. I saw entire cities reduced to rubble, nations at war, people suffering on a scale I could barely comprehend. It was as if I could see all of humanity's pain and suffering condensed into a single moment. In the midst of this chaos, one date stood out with crystal clarity. October 19th. Although I didn't know the exact year, I instinctively understood that this date would mark a crucial turning point for humanity. I saw ongoing conflicts intensify dramatically, leading to an escalation of violence and destruction that threatened to engulf the entire world. I witnessed wars that transcended national borders, conflicts that were not just about territory or resources, but about fundamental ideologies and beliefs. I saw how these battles were not just limited to the physical plane, but also extended into the spiritual realm, with unseen forces influencing people's hearts and minds. What struck me deeply was the interconnectedness of all these events. Every decision, every action, no matter how small, had repercussions that spread like waves, affecting lives on the other side of the planet. I saw how hate and fear fed off each other, creating a vicious cycle of violence and retaliation. But amid all this darkness, I also saw sparks of hope, small acts of kindness and compassion that, although seemingly insignificant in the face of the vastness of suffering, had the power to change the course of events. I saw ordinary people standing up against injustice, choosing love over hate, forgiveness over revenge. As these visions unfolded before me, I felt Jesus communicate with me without words. I understood that what I was seeing was not a fixed and unchanging future, but a warning, a call to action. Humanity was at a crossroads, and the choices we would make in the coming years would determine not only our collective destiny, but the future of the planet itself. The date of October 19th was not a death sentence for humanity, but a crucial point, a moment of decision. It was a reminder that time was running out, that we needed to act now to avoid the worst. As the visions began to subside, I was overcome with an overwhelming sense of responsibility. I had been chosen to witness these revelations for a reason. It wasn't just about saving my own life, but about using this second chance to make a difference in the world. Jesus then showed me something else, the transformative power of divine love. I saw how this love, when truly embraced and lived, had the power to heal deep wounds, break cycles of violence, and bring light even in the darkest situations. As I absorbed these revelations, I understood that my mission, if I chose to accept it, would be to not only warn the world of approaching dangers, but also to be a beacon of that divine love. I should show people that no matter how dark the night seems, there is always hope. There is always a chance for redemption. The visions came to an end, leaving me stunned and transformed. The weight of the knowledge I had received was immense, but with it came a strength and determination that I had never felt before. I knew that if I returned, my life would never be the same. I would carry these revelations with me, using them to guide my actions and decisions in each moment. I looked to Jesus and the beings of light for guidance. Their compassionate looks told me that the choice was mine. I could stay in this realm of peace and eternal love, or return with this vital knowledge. The decision I was about to make would not only affect my own life, but potentially the course of human history. At that moment, I understood that the knowledge I was given was both a gift and a responsibility. The revelations about the future of humanity were not just meant for me, but had to be shared in some way with the world. I would be a messenger, a bridge between the divine and the earthly. The date of October 19th was burned into my mind, a constant reminder of the urgency of my mission. It wasn't just about preventing a single catastrophic event, but about changing the course of humanity by inspiring people to choose love and compassion over fear and hate. As I reflected on all I had witnessed, I felt a mix of emotions: fear at the magnitude of the challenges we would face, but also an unwavering hope in the power of divine love to overcome even the darkest obstacles. While the disturbing visions of humanity's future still echoed in my mind, I was enveloped by a wave of love so deep and intense that it almost knocked me off balance. It was as if the entire universe had condensed into a single point of pure compassion and acceptance, and that point was now focused entirely on me. This love, emanating from Jesus and the beings of light, was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. It was not just a feeling, but a living, palpable force that seemed to permeate every fiber of my being. It was unconditional, non-judgmental, accepting every part of me, my flaws, my fears, my mistakes, with an understanding that transcended anything I could imagine. In that moment, I felt like I was being healed not just physically, but on a much deeper level, emotionally and spiritually. Every wound I carried, every insecurity, every unresolved pain, everything was touched by this divine light. It was as if layers and layers of weight were being removed from my being, leaving me lighter, more whole. Communication with Jesus and the beings of light was still wordless, but it was clearer and deeper than any conversation I had ever had. I understood, at that moment, that this love was the true essence of the universe, the force that held everything together. It was the answer to all the conflicts, all the wars, all the suffering that I had witnessed in the visions of the future. I realized that this love was not something distant or unattainable, but a force that existed within every human being. It was our true nature, often obscured by layers of fear, pain, and conditioning. The key to changing the course of humanity lay not in great heroic actions, but in each individual reconnecting with that source of love within themselves and expressing it in the world. As I absorbed this understanding, I felt a transformation occurring within me. It was as if every cell of my being was being recalibrated to vibrate in harmony with this divine love. I understood that if I chose to return, I would take this frequency with me, becoming a channel for this love in the physical world. Jesus showed me, without words, how this love was the solution to the conflicts that plagued humanity. I saw how, when truly embraced, this love had the power to dissolve barriers, heal deep divisions, and bring out the best in humanity. It was the key to avoiding the dark future I had witnessed. The beings of light next to Jesus seemed to amplify this loving energy. Their presence was like beacons of compassion and wisdom, reminding me that we are not alone in our journey. There were benevolent forces constantly working behind the scenes, guiding and supporting humanity. In this state of deep connection, I understood that my near-death experience was not an accident, but a calling. I had been brought to this realm to experience this love in its purest form, to understand its transformative power, and to take that understanding back to the physical world. The healing I felt wasn't just for me. It was a reminder of the healing potential that exists within every human being. If I returned, my mission would be to not only warn of future dangers, but also to be a living example of this love in action, showing people, through my actions and my presence, that it is possible to live from this place of unconditional love, even in the face of the greatest challenges. As I stood bathed in this divine light, I felt an overwhelming gratitude for life, for the opportunity to experience this love, and for the chance to make a difference in the world. I understood that every moment is precious, every interaction an opportunity to express this divine love. The fear I had felt at visions of the future was dissolved by this wave of love. In its place came a calm determination. I knew that, armed with this understanding of divine love, I could face any challenge that lay ahead. No matter how dark the future might seem, there was always hope as long as that love existed. As this experience of unconditional love reached its peak, I felt completely transformed. I was no longer just Serafina, the 12-year-old girl who had a skiing accident. I was a being of light, a channel for divine love, ready to fulfill a greater purpose in the world. It was in this state of complete union with divine love that I found myself faced with a crucial choice, a decision that would determine not only the course of my life, but potentially the destiny of humanity. Surrounded by divine love and the comforting presence of Jesus and the beings of light, I was gently guided to a new scenario. Suddenly, I found myself in a flower field of indescribable beauty. The flowers displayed colors so vibrant that they seemed to pulse with a life of their own, each one emitting its own soft light. The air was filled with a sweet, invigorating fragrance like nothing I had ever experienced on earth. Jesus approached me, his gaze full of compassion and wisdom. Without words, he made me understand that the time had come to make a crucial choice. I could choose to remain in this realm of peace and eternal love, free from the pains and challenges of earthly life, or I could choose to return to my physical body, carrying with me the knowledge and love I had experienced, to fulfill a greater mission. The decision seemed impossible. On the one hand, the idea of remaining in this place of perfect harmony was incredibly tempting. Here, I was free from pain, fear, and suffering. I could feel eternity stretching out before me, filled with peace and divine understanding. Part of me longed to stay, to dive deeper into this unconditional love that enveloped me. On the other hand, the visions of humanity's future that I had witnessed weighed on my conscience. I knew that if I chose to return, I would face immense challenges. He would have to carry the burden of knowledge about future events, including the ominous date of October 19th. It would be my responsibility to try to change the course of events, to inspire people to choose love over fear. As I pondered, images of my life on earth flashed before my eyes. I saw my mother, devastated by my loss, crying inconsolably. I saw my father, trying to be strong, but broken inside. I thought about all the dreams and plans I had for my life, all the experiences I hadn't yet had. Jesus, sensing my internal struggle, gently placed his hand on my shoulder. Without words, he made me understand that whatever I chose, I would be respected and honored. There was no judgment, just unconditional love and acceptance. It was at that moment that I had an epiphany. The love I had experienced here was not something to be kept just for myself. It was a gift that was meant to be shared, a light that was meant to shine in the world. I realized that upon returning, I could be a conduit for this divine love, bringing hope and healing to those who needed it most. With this understanding, my decision became clear. I looked at Jesus and the beings of light, my heart full of gratitude and determination. Silently, I communicated my choice. I would return. The moment I made this choice, I felt a wave of love and approval emanating from Jesus and the beings of light. They seemed to radiate pride and joy, as if they knew this was the right decision, not just for me, but for a greater purpose. Jesus approached and, in a gesture of blessing, touched my forehead. In that instant, I felt as if all the knowledge and love I had experienced was being sealed within me, an inner light that I would take back to the physical world. The beings of light gathered around me, their presence forming a circle of protection and support. I understood that although I was returning to the physical plane, I would never be truly alone. These beings would be my invisible guides and protectors, always present to guide and strengthen me in times of need. As I prepared for the journey back, I looked at the flower field one last time, etching into my memory the beauty and peace of this place. I knew I would carry with me not just the memory of this experience, but a sacred mission, to be a beacon of light and love in a world that desperately needed hope. With one last look of gratitude at Jesus and the beings of light, I felt my consciousness begin to shift. The flower field and divine presences began to disappear, replaced by a sensation of rapid movement. I was returning to my body, my life, and a destiny I could barely imagine. The choice had been made. Now my real journey was about to begin. The transition back into my physical body was an intense and disorienting experience. In a moment, I was enveloped in divine light, surrounded by Jesus and the heavenly beings. The next, I felt myself being pulled through a tunnel of energy, the colors and sensations passing through me in a dizzying whirlwind. Suddenly, I was hit by a wave of overwhelming physical sensations. The pain that had disappeared during my spiritual journey returned with a vengeance. making me aware of every bruise, every broken bone. The intense cold of the snow contrasted sharply with the welcoming warmth I had experienced moments before. I opened my eyes with difficulty, blinking against the bright light. The first thing I saw was my mother's face, marked by tears and anguish, but now illuminated by an expression of shock and disbelief. Beside him, several doctors and nurses were moving around frantically, their voices a confused buzz of astonishment and excitement. "She's awake!" I heard someone scream, their voice thick with disbelief. "It's a miracle!" I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and sore. I only managed to make a weak moan, which was enough to make my mother burst into tears of relief and joy. "Serafina, my love," she sobbed, holding my hand gently. "You came back to us. Oh, thank God." Doctors quickly approached, starting to perform a series of tests. I heard snippets of their conversations, words like impossible and unprecedented being repeated over and over. Little by little, I began to understand the extent of my miracle. Apparently, I had been clinically dead for several minutes. The injuries I suffered in the accident were considered fatal. My neck was broken. There was significant brain damage due to lack of oxygen. The doctors had declared that even if I survived, I would remain in a permanent vegetative state. Yet there I was, not only alive, but completely conscious. And as the doctors continued their examinations, another shocking reality came to light. My injuries, which should have left me paralyzed, were healing at an inexplicable speed. I watched the confusion and astonishment on the doctors' faces as they checked and rechecked their instruments, unable to believe what they were seeing. X-rays were taken, showing that the bones that had been broken moments before were now intact. Neurological examinations revealed normal brain activity, with no signs of the extensive damage that had been previously diagnosed. One of the doctors, a middle-aged man with gray hair and an expression of complete bewilderment, approached my mother. "Ma'am," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "I have no explanation for this. In all my years of medicine, I have never seen anything like it. Not only has your daughter survived injuries that should have been fatal, but she is healing at a speed that defies all medical logic." My mother, still holding my hand, looked at me with a mixture of love, relief, and a silent question in her eyes. She knew, instinctively, that something extraordinary had happened, something beyond the comprehension of medical science. Meanwhile, I struggled to process everything that was happening. The memory of my afterlife experience was still vivid in my mind. The unconditional love, the visions of the future, the choice I had made. But now, back in the physical world, everything seemed so far away, almost like a dream. However, I knew it hadn't been a dream. The sensation of divine love still reverberated in every fiber of my being, and the knowledge I had gained weighed heavily on my mind. I knew I had returned with a purpose, a mission that would change not only my life but potentially the course of humanity. As the days passed in the hospital, my recovery continued to intrigue and amaze the medical team. Test after test confirmed the inexplicable. My body was healing at an unprecedented speed. Injuries that would normally take months or years to heal were disappearing in a matter of days. The doctors could not hide their astonishment. I heard them discussing in hushed tones, using terms like unique case and worthy of study. Some spoke of a miracle, others of some type of medical phenomenon not yet understood. To me, however, the explanation was clear, even if I couldn't fully share it. My mother rarely left my side, her eyes constantly brimming with tears of joy and disbelief. She watched me with a mixture of love and curiosity, as if she knew that something profound had changed in me, beyond mere physical recovery. "Serafina," she asked me in a quiet moment, when we were alone in the hospital room, "what happened to you? When you were, was there something there?" I looked into her eyes, seeing fear, hope, and confusion mixed together. "I wanted to tell you everything, about Jesus, the beings of light, the visions of the future. But something told me that it wasn't the right time yet. How could you explain such a profound and transcendental experience? How could you share the weight of knowledge you now carried without causing further concern? So instead I held his hand and smiled softly. "Mom," I said, my voice still a little hoarse. "I experienced something incredible, something full of love and peace. And I came back because I knew you needed me, that the world needed me." She looked at me for a long moment, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. Then, without saying a word, she hugged me gently, as if understanding that some truths are beyond words. As the days turned into weeks and my recovery continued to surprise everyone, I began to feel a growing urgency. The knowledge of the visions I had seen, especially the ominous date of October 19th, weighed on my mind. I knew I had returned with a purpose, and that the time to fulfill that mission was precious. As my physical strength returned, I also felt an internal change. The divine love I had experienced was not just a distant memory, but a constant presence within me. I realized I looked at people differently now, the doctors, the nurses, even the other patients. I could see beyond their physical appearances, feeling their struggles, their fears, their hopes. And with this new realization came an overwhelming desire to help, to heal, to make a difference. I understood that my miracle wasn't just for me. It was a call to something greater, a reminder of the power of love and compassion to transform lives. As I prepared to leave the hospital, I knew I was about to embark on a journey very different from the one I had imagined before the accident. My life had been saved for a reason, and I was determined to honor that gift, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The world beyond the hospital walls awaited me, a world I now saw with new eyes, a world that desperately needed the light and love I had experienced, and I was ready to be the channel of that love, to fulfill the mission entrusted to me in the realm beyond life. Leaving the hospital was like being born again. The world I knew before the accident felt both familiar and strangely new. Colors seemed more vibrant, sounds clearer, and each human interaction carried a deeper meaning. It was as if my senses had been heightened, not just physically, but spiritually. The first few days at home, I was overwhelmed by a wave of conflicting emotions. Joy to be alive and reunited with my family, gratitude for the second chance I was given, but also a deep sense of responsibility and, at times, isolation. How could I share the vastness of what I had experienced? How could I explain the mission that I now felt pulsating in every fiber of my being? My parents noticed the change in me. It wasn't just miraculous physical recovery, but something deeper. The way I spoke, the way I looked at the world around me, everything had changed. I often caught my mother watching me with a mixture of love and concern in her eyes, as if she could sense that her daughter had returned different, transformed by something beyond her understanding. As the days passed, I began to realize that my near-death experience had left me with more than just memories. The unconditional love I experienced in the afterlife was not something distant, but a living force within me. I began to notice that I could feel others' emotions in a way that I had never been able to before. It was as if he could see past the masks people wore, straight into their hearts and souls. This new sensitivity brought both blessings and challenges. On the one hand, I felt an overwhelming compassion for everyone around me. I wanted to help, heal, comfort. On the other hand, it was sometimes overwhelming to feel so much pain and suffering in the world. It was during this period of adjustment that I began to have vivid dreams and visions. Fragments of the revelations I received during my near-death experience came back to me, often accompanied by new insights. The date of October 19th kept appearing, a constant reminder of the urgency of my mission. As I grew stronger, both physically and emotionally, I began to feel a clear calling. I knew I had returned for a reason, and that reason was becoming increasingly clear. I was to dedicate my life to healing and helping others, not just physically, but spiritually. It was at that moment that I made the decision that would change the course of my life. I would become a nurse. It was not just a career choice, but a response to a divine calling. I knew that as a nurse I would have the opportunity to touch lives directly, to be a conduit for the love and healing I had experienced in the afterlife. When I shared my decision with my parents, I saw a mix of emotions on their faces, pride in my desire to help others, but also concern. After all, I was young, and the path I chose would not be easy. But they saw the determination in my eyes and understood that this was more than just teenage desire. It was a purpose, a mission. The following years were a journey of growth and discovery. While I dedicated myself to studying, preparing for my future career, I also worked to understand and develop the spiritual gifts I had brought with me. Meditation, prayer, and study of various spiritual traditions have become an integral part of my routine. As I grew and developed, both as a person and as a future healthcare professional, I began to realize that my mission went beyond simply healing bodies. I was here to remind people of their true divine nature, to be a beacon of hope and love in a world often dominated by fear and darkness. Every step of this journey of transformation reminded me of the visions I had, of the future that could be if we didn't change our course. The date of October 19th remained a constant reminder of the urgency of my mission. It wasn't just about preventing a catastrophic event, but about changing hearts and minds, one individual at a time. As I approached completing my studies and beginning my career as a nurse, I felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. I knew that the challenges I would face would be immense, both physically and spiritually, but I also knew I wasn't alone on this journey. The divine love I had experienced was always with me, guiding me, strengthening me. Looking back at the 12-year-old girl who suffered that skiing accident, I could hardly believe the transformation that had occurred. That event, which could have been the end of my story, was actually just the beginning. A beginning of a life dedicated to making a difference, to being an instrument of healing and love in a world that desperately needed both. And so, with a heart full of purpose and eyes fixed on the future, I prepared to take the next step in my journey. A journey that, I knew, was not just mine, but that of all humanity. The years passed, and my life as a nurse unfolded in ways I never could have predicted. Each day brings new challenges, new opportunities to touch lives and be a conduit for the divine love I experienced during my near-death experience. Yet behind every moment of joy and fulfillment, the shadow of the future I glimpsed remains, a constant reminder of the greater mission I carry. The date of October 19th, burned into my mind during that transcendental experience, became a focal point in my life. Each year, as the day approaches, I feel a growing tension, an urgency that seems to resonate not just within me, but in the very fabric of reality around me. At the beginning of my career, this date went largely unnoticed by the world. But as the years progressed, I began to notice disturbing patterns. Global conflicts appear to intensify as October approaches. Political tensions rise, natural disasters become more frequent, and a general sense of unrest seems to spread across the world. In my work as a nurse, I see the effects of this growing tension reflected in the faces of my patients. More people arrive at the hospital with symptoms of stress and anxiety. Emergency rooms become busier, as if the collective body of humanity itself is reacting to an invisible but palpable threat. As the years passed, the date of October 19th began to gain subtle notoriety. Journalists and analysts noted the pattern of significant events that seemed to cluster around this date. Conspiracy theories have emerged, some coming frighteningly close to the truth I carry. Now, in 2024, as that fateful day approaches once again, the tension in the air is palpable. Newspaper headlines speak of an imminent diplomatic crisis between superpowers. Reports of unusual military activity circulate on social media. Fear and uncertainty seem to be everywhere. On the eve of October 19th, I lie awake, my heart heavy with the knowledge of what may lie ahead. I vividly remember the visions I received so many years ago. Cities in ruins, nations at war, suffering on a scale I can barely comprehend. But I also remember the unconditional love I experienced, the purpose I was given. I know that I did not receive these visions just to be a passive witness. I'm here to make a difference, to be a beacon of hope and love in the midst of darkness. Tonight, I do something I've never done before. Using the social networks and contacts I have made over the years, I begin to share my story. Not all the details, of course. I know many wouldn't believe it or fully understand it. But I share enough to sow a seed of hope and awareness. I talk about the importance of choosing love over fear, of seeking understanding over conflict. I share stories of healing and transformation that I have witnessed in my work as a nurse. And, most importantly, I emphasize that the future is not written in stone, that our collective choices and actions have the power to change the course of events. As the sun rises on October 19th, I don't know exactly what the day will bring, but I know that no matter what events unfold, my mission remains the same. I am here to be a channel of divine love, to remind people of their true nature, to bring light where there is darkness. As I prepare to face whatever the day brings, I feel a mix of fear and hope. Fear for what could happen, but hope in the transformative power of the love that I have experienced and that I know exists within each human being. The October 19th omen has been a constant part of my life for so long. But at this point, I understand that this is not the end of the story. It is just one chapter in a larger journey. A journey of transformation, healing, and the collective awakening of humanity. And so, as the day begins, I turn to prayer, asking for guidance and strength. I pray that the love I experienced during my near-death experience might manifest in the world in powerful, transformative ways. I pray that people can open their hearts so that we can collectively choose a path of peace and understanding. With a heart full of hope and determination, I prepare to face this crucial day. I don't know what he will bring, but I know I'm here for a reason. And while the world waits with trepidation, I stand firm in my purpose, ready to be an instrument of love and healing, no matter what the future holds. If you like this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.